Hi, and welcome along to the F1 Pit Stop show. Matty is in the building, and we are only here to discuss one thing. We are looking forward to the biggest F1 race that has happened in a long, long time. Both drivers, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, on the same amount of points going into the final race of the season. Winner takes all, Matty.
Oh my God. I mean, like you say, it just hasn't got bigger than this. From a Formula One point of view, in either of our lifetimes, really, we have not got to the final day level on points. It's only happened once before in 70 odd years. I'm getting more and more, the closer we get in, and I know we asked for this last time, but I'm getting more and more nervous, Robbie. Half of me can't wait for it. The other half of me just wishes we had a bit more time to process it, you know?
It's going to be certainly interesting, and there's so many interesting scenarios going into this last race. I was just actually watching my TV a little while ago, both drivers getting interviewed, both of them very confident, but it is basically winner takes all. So whoever wins the race is automatically the champion. Of course, it could be that they don't win the race, but whoever comes higher than the other would then win the race. Or there is also the thing that if Lewis was to crash out, or actually if Max was to crash out and Lewis finished, there's so many different scenarios. And of course, if Max, say, for instance, run into Lewis Hamilton by accident and run him off the track, and he finished the race, he'd be champion. I mean, it's all on this.
It really is all on this, and you're spot on. I mean, you only score a point if you finish in the top 10, let's remember. So, for one to go out, the other would still need to finish in the top 10 in order to clinch the title. But you're quite right. If they don't score points today, which is the only scenario where we end up with a draw, then it is decided by, effectively, it's like goal difference in football. It comes down to who has the most race wins. And you want to hear the stats on that one. Max Verstappen sitting on 9 race wins, Lewis Hamilton on 8 race wins before this weekend. So if Lewis does end up doing the miraculous and winning this weekend, they will have won 9 races each. They will have been tied on points at the last race. Like, it would have been the closest season, I think, probably ever.
And who are you making favourite at the moment? I mean, who does this track suit? Last year, I think Abu Dhabi, Verstappen won, is it?
He did, yeah. So I would have said to you, and up until that race, this is probably Mercedes' most dominant track on the entire Formula One calendar. This has had the word Mercedes written all over it for years and years. They've always done well here. But then Max Verstappen came through and won it. Now, Lewis was already champion and maybe slightly less incentivized to win it. But there have been some key changes made to the track this year. And what they've actually done is remove some of the tricky S corners and replace them with a fast sweeping U-shaped corner, making the track even faster still, which in theory, Robbie, plays into Mercedes' favor. It was already a Mercedes track, but now in theory, it's slightly stronger for Mercedes. But this season has not panned out in theory. That Red Bull has been full of surprises. Max Verstappen is driving like a man on a fucking mission. And we saw that in qualifying at Jeddah last week. Lewis set a really good time, but Max drove on the absolute limit of the car. And if it wasn't for that last little mistake on the last corner, he was beating Lewis by a quarter of a second on a track supposedly favoured to Mercedes. So honestly, at the level that these boys are driving at, it isn't really going to be decided by whose track. It is going to be performance on the day.
Yeah, and it's going to be very important to get pole on this track.
Crucial. This is the most important qualifying we've seen in decades, Robbie. This, literally now, you come in on Saturday, put in a great lap and start on pole position, and ideally your teammate starting second behind you, and then, hey-ho, hopefully you can pull away and lock it in, whichever of the two that are. But again, Jeddah showed us that race restarts. We got 3 starts of a race last time around in Jeddah. The first one, Lewis did a fine job on, not a problem. The second one, Lewis from third came up and got in the inside of Max. But the third race restart, Max did a way better job than Lewis and was way out into the lead. So, yeah, again, it really is in a sport that's already decided by margins, milliseconds, one split second of lack of concentration or overthinking about the end result and it's all over for them.
What must their nerves be like going into a race like this, those two, you know what I mean? Especially Max Verstappen. I mean, Lewis Hamilton, he's been here before. He's on the verge of possibly winning an 8th title, which would make him, no Formula One driver has ever won that amount. He's tied at the moment with Schumacher.
Totally.
So he's been here, he's done it before. Whereas Max Verstappen, you know, what weight must be on his shoulders? I mean, he always seems very cool when he's doing his interviews and that. But,
yeah, he does.
You know, after leading for so long, after looking like it's going to be your title, for the guy behind you to come and be back level with you going into this last race, the nerves must be unbelievable.
I think to the civilian, to you or I, immeasurable pressure. I don't think, you know, I certainly speak for myself, I could not do it at that level with that amount of pressure, millions of eyes on them. And a slight side note to that, talking of million eyes watching, have you seen today, Channel 4 have just announced that they've been able to get hold of the rights to the final to make it free to view for everybody in the UK, which I think finals in every sport should always be shown around the world for free. Everybody, it shouldn't be a commercial thing. So, you know, with that in mind, there'll be a bigger watching audience than there probably ever has been in either of these guys' racing history because of the, you know, the hype about it. I've got friends that have come out the woodwork who aren't typically Formula One fans who are like, I can't escape it. I'll be watching on Sunday because it's all over my TikTok, all over my Instagram. It's on the news every day. So, yeah, the pressure's massive for them, but in fairness, I've not personally seen these guys crack. Even Max Verstappen, who's watched his, you know, big lead dwindle over the last few races, he still doesn't look to have snapped to me. I think he's certainly driving right on the edge of the limit. He certainly, in my mind, in Jeddah, crossed that line, you know, and people are still disagreeing. That's still a hot topic, whether he brake tested Lewis, whether he didn't. But for me, he doesn't seem to have cracked. He's saying all the right things in interviews. His social media seems clean. He's not moaning like we've seen him in previous times. And the same for Lewis Hamilton, you know? So I don't know what your take is, Robbie, but for me, I'm seeing just these two guys who seem up for it.
Do you think, if it comes down to it, Max Verstappen will run Lewis off the track? That's the question that everybody is going to be, will be asking each other. That's what everybody's going to be looking at this weekend. Would he run him off the track, in your opinion?
A week ago, all season long up to then, I'd say no. I don't believe there is a cynical bone in Max's body, as I don't in Lewis's or either. I think it comes down to taking risks, and sometimes the risk pays off and sometimes it doesn't. But for me, there was a crossing of that line in Jeddah where I went from somebody who believed that Max raced hard and would be happy racing wheel to wheel as Lewis Hamilton did. But for me then it was, no, actually, this isn't hard racing. This is over the line racing. This is bullying on a racetrack. And in my mind, and again, people will be livid with me in the comments, and I'm fine with that. For me, Max took it that one step too far to you're not hard racing now. You're thinking that by having that reputation, you can intimidate Lewis and others to not challenge you in a 50-50 and come out on top. And I think Lewis has been in the game long enough and is smart enough to know, well, if that's the way you're going to play it, I'm not going to just pull out and do it. And that's what we saw at Monza. We saw Max really pushing the boundary and Lewis going, well, I could pull out, but it's my corner. And Max ends up on top of him. Now, Max fans would say the same thing about Silverstone as well. So I know that we've had both sides, but yeah, I'm concerned that not just Max Verstappen, but the Red Bulls in general they are going to be motivated. They are going to be, incentivized almost to play dirty, because the FIA don't seem to be doing a lot about it.
Oh, so it could be very naughty there on Sunday. What's the other big stories going into it? I mean, the constructions.
Constructors title
is still not settled.
It's not done, but it does look like it's more or less not going to have any more changes unless something drastic happens. So it's looking like Mercedes will take that one with Red Bull second, unless both Mercedes don't finish and both Red Bulls. You know, there's crazy things can happen. Ferrari look to be locking in third place, which is a massive result for them. this season. McLaren, I'm sure, will be disappointed with that based on how they started. Let's not forget that for the first 3 or 4 months of this season, Lando Norris was sitting third in the Drivers' Championship above Bottas and Perez. So I think there'll be disappointment there. I think Alpine have done a great job locking in 5th place. But, you know, you want to know big stories for the weekend. Well, it's a shame in one sense that the spotlight is going to be, and rightly so, on Lewis and Max, that we're going to forget that one of the legends of the game, Kimi Räikkönen, is going to race his last race in Formula One. He is the longest serving Formula One driver in history. He's a world champion with Ferrari. He's had an incredible career. It's going to be a real shame to see him leaving.
Okay, finally, the question that everybody will be asking from now up until Sunday, and it will be answered on Sunday. And of course, we're going to be doing a watch along to it, big watch along, me and Matty, and thanks to everybody who watched last week. It was absolutely crazy numbers. Who is going to win?
I've got to steady myself for this because my absolute everything about me wants Lewis to get the 8th. I've said this since day one. Retire on top, do that, move on. And then after that, I'm confident Max Verstappen has got the ability to win future world titles and do that. But it doesn't seem that clear cut to me. It isn't just going to be about Lewis coming out and dominating, doing that, and Max just puts up with me. I think either way it goes, we should expect a lot of drama. But if I've got to hang my hat, I will hang it on Lewis. But there is a big part of me, Robbie, that can see a DNF and see some madness unfold. Let me just give you one last stat before we sign off. I've looked into the drivers' points, and this is on their license. So they all have a personal license. A lot of people don't know about this. It's not talked about it a lot. And like in our world, if you get 12 points on your professional racing license, then you'll get a race ban. When you look at the leaderboard for that, Lewis Hamilton's got 2 points this year. Max Verstappen has got 7 points. He is joint second highest on penalty points given by the FIA, along with his teammate, Perez. The only person with higher points than that in the lead on 8 points is another Red Bull driver, Yuki Tsunoda. So the 3 guys under the wing and the power of Christian Horner, just purely by facts based on the points, have been the dirtiest drivers of the year. And these Red Bulls are going to want to win. They want to end this 7 or 8 years of dominance from Mercedes. So, yeah, I really just hope that the title isn't decided by anything malicious, a crash from Perez into Hamilton.
So you're even suggesting that it could even be maybe one of the other drivers?
Well, let's put it this way. Max to risk himself crashing into Lewis, the FIA could then give a decision like they did with Senna versus Prost, where retrospectively they then took that away from Senna and said, actually, not fair, we're giving it to Prost. If Max Verstappen isn't involved in the collision and it's, say, given to Perez, there's nothing that the FIA can do to give the title to Lewis, if you see what I mean, because Max will go on and score points and win the race. He'll be the out-and-out point leader,
Sonoda.
And that's that. Or Tsunoda. Yeah, or Gasly, but I think Gasly's got his own fight going on and doing that. So, again, I'm not just sitting here and spouting that off and saying I think it'll happen.
Conspiracy theories.
But it is a conspiracy theory. And if it does happen, Robbie, well, there'll be some furious podcasting done from me and you afterwards.
Well, listen, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to Sunday. It's going to be a great race. The final Formula One race of the year taking place in Abu Dhabi. Winner takes all. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen going head-to-head on equal points going into that last race. And as Matt said, Kimi Räikkönen in his final race as well. Who's going to win the Constructors as well? It's going to be really, really interesting. Make sure you check it out here on the Don Robbie channel. Subscribe so you don't miss the notifications. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be huge.
Come on.